everybody for coming. We are so excited to have you join us today for a healthy modern twist on Shabbat dinner with Jake Cohen. I'm Jessica Jablon. I'm the Valley Outreach Program Coordinator for Sharsheret out of our California regional office. For those of you who don't know about Sharsheret, we help women and families facing breast and ovarian cancer, as well as those who are at elevated genetic risk through free, confidential, and personalized support and resources. We also provide health education throughout the country. One of our goals during COVID is to make sure that we are offering healthy living and cancer prevention information to you during this hard time and giving you what support you need. In addition to our virtual services that can be found on our website or by emailing us, you can also access prior webinars on a range of cancer-related topics, as well as access our calendar of upcoming virtual programs through our website. Before we get started, I want to quickly review some Zoom housekeeping items. Everyone on this call has been muted. Please keep your mute button on for the remainder of the program. If you have any questions about the recipes Jake is cooking today, please ask them in the chat box and I'll ask them during the program. So you can just type them into the chat. If you would like to remain anonymous, you can turn off your video in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen by clicking stop video, or you can call in. And we're providing the call-in number in the chat box. This program is going to be recorded and we will be sending it with our email follow-up, and it will be live. It will be living on our website. If they're the only people who will be showing on the webinar will be the speakers. So this is the third program in our Sharsheret in the Kitchen series. It's an initiative in the partnership with Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles to incorporate healthy meals into our Jewish holidays. The first two Sharsheret in the Kitchen recordings are on our website. The first one was Rosh Hashanah with Deanie Klein from Prep and Rally. And then we did a Hanukkah program with Nicole Dayani from Nicole's Kitchen LA. Our next program will be on March 17th as we talk about Passover with Alana Mulstein, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of 2B Mindset. You should have received the recipes for today's program in advance. My colleague is going to put the link into the chat box so you can download it and print it or see it on your screen. We want to thank our generous sponsors, Cedars-Sinai, the cooperative and the cooperative agreement DP 191906 from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We are so grateful to our sponsors for helping make these programs so successful. Whether you're at risk, recently diagnosed, or living with a breast or ovarian cancer diagnosis, eating a healthy diet can help you feel better and maintain your strength during and after treatment. That's why we want to let you know about Ina, your personal, intelligent nutrition assistant, brought to you by Sharsheret and Savor Health. It's a free virtual nutrition assistant who helps guide and inspire those facing cancer with personalized nutrition tips, recipes, and answers to your questions. And you can access Ina through our website, and the link for that is being put in the chat right now. If you're interested in finding out more about Sharsheret's free, confidential, and personalized services, please email us or visit us at our website at sharsheret.org. Now I want to take a moment to introduce one of our wonderful California Advisory Committee members, Miriam, who will be sharing her story with us.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and I'm so excited to be here today. I just wanted to start by saying I really think of Sharsheret and I think of Shabbat, and two things come to mind when that happens. In fact, it takes me back to my journey with breast cancer, having witnessed my identical twin sister who lives in New York and I live in LA. Her journey, I witnessed it firsthand. I flew in for every one of her lumpectomies and her surgery and her mastectomy. I knew that when I got back, I was going to have to take sincere control over the situation. And of course, I was in high risk. For 7 years, I was high risk and seeing a doctor, and I knew that other shoe may drop eventually, and sure enough, it did 7 years later. I had a hunch that day that I got my bad mammogram, as I call it, my bad mammogram results, that I was heading down that same path as her. In fact, she texted me as I was in the room waiting to hear, and everyone gets cleared out, and I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting, and all of a sudden they say, Miriam, can you come back? And this was the third time for the redo of the mammogram. And I texted my sister, I call her Sis, and she said, Yeah, that's what that means. It is, in fact, what happened to me. Well, fast forward to 2 lumpectomies later and still no clear margin. I was left with very little choice but to proceed with a mastectomy. My sister actually had the exact same case and outcome as me, and had also at that time been involved with Sharsheret. And my close friends had said, Miriam, you have to call Sharsheret. They're really a great resource for so many women just like you. I decided that's okay. I don't need help. I'm okay. Let's just start. I'm going to start here. It'll be okay. Once the mastectomy was over, I was recuperating at home. And I quickly realized that those heroic efforts, they were valiant and all, but I probably needed to stop being a martyr, and maybe make the call. Well, in the meantime, the first Shabbat rolled around post-surgery, and I barely recall the stupor I was in post-anesthetic, but I knew I was surrounded by my family. They were there to support me, and they were there to feed me, of course. You see, if you ask my kids about the most formative Jewish experience in their life, it is Shabbat dinner. There's no Shabbat that goes without being part of a family. In fact, it's now a Zoom Shabbat with my parents who live in Chicago. And knowing that it was so truly going to be important that we be together, they surrounded me. I remember laying on the couch having my chicken soup while they sat at the table and they did the prayers over the candles and the wine and the challah, and they proceeded to have their dinner. At that point, a close friend stopped by to drop off dessert and again reminded me, Miriam, you really need to call Sharsheret. So that Monday, I finally picked up the phone and I called. And I set up an appointment under the auspices of maybe I could use the information for my clients because I work in the healthcare field. And in the end, I found out that my conversation with Amy, the California program director, was extremely soothing and comforting and actually just what I needed. She listened, she gave me permission to feel the grief that I had been suppressing. And before I knew it, Sharsheret became my place, the place where I could channel my need to serve and help others. I remember that I had a meeting scheduled then within 3 months of my surgery with the California regional director, Jenna, at a coffee shop. And we discussed the various ways that I could get involved. And now that I'm a new board member, I'm really, really excited to pay it forward to those who so desperately need the services of Sharsheret. And the ones that they offer, of course, are insurmountably effective for all the women that I've come to know. And men, by the way. So when I heard that Sharsheret was hosting this Shabbat dinner kitchen event with Jake, I was like, whoa, my favorite pastime during the pandemic has been cooking and baking, no doubt. And I realized that I just couldn't miss this opportunity to participate in an event that really does combine my love of cooking Shabbat dinners and being with my family and my commitment to serve other women through Sharsheret. Knowing that Sharsheret means a chain, and I realize we are all linked in that some way. We are all linked, and the intertwining of those links and that makes us one big chain. And thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. That was just so powerful, and we just appreciate you so much at Sharsheret. You've made such an impact, and you continue to make such an impact, and I'm really excited to have you as one of our newest California Advisory Committee members.
Thank you.
You know, Shabbat means something different to everyone and is celebrated or experienced in a way that works for you, whatever that means for you. You know, in my family, we would occasionally have a Friday night Shabbat dinner, but it wasn't weekly practice until COVID. And since March, we've been celebrating Shabbat each week. We've even been making challah from scratch each week. And it's been kind of a nice way for us to kind of reset and end our week. And we look forward to the smell of challah throughout our home. And it's no surprise that there are these amazing, delicious foods that we associate as Jews with holidays, you know, and particularly Shabbat. And though often on Shabbat, we eat the same recipes from week to week. So now I'm really excited to change up my menu and for you to change up yours by adding the new dishes that Jake is going to be showing us how to make today. And we are so excited to welcome Jake Cohen to Sharsheret in the kitchen. Jake is a bright new star in the food world, a former food staffer at Saveur, and a then food editor of Tasting Table and Time Out New York, and most recently, the editorial and test kitchen director of social media juggernaut The Feed. When he isn't writing about food for publications, including Food 52, Food and Wine, and Real Simple, he's posting challah braiding videos and recipes on his Instagram and TikTok at Jake Cohen. He lives in New York City with his husband, Alex, and Jake's first cookbook, Jewish, a cookbook, Reinvented Recipes from a Modern Mensch, is coming in March 2021. Jake, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is honestly just what I love to do is cook and share my love for Shabbat, and it was such an incredibly powerful story, Miriam. I honestly feel like I was about to start crying as we get that, but I'm going to try not to because we got to get through these recipes. These are three recipes, two for like dinner and then one dessert. The two savory recipes are from my new book. I just got the first copy. It's called Jewish, hyphen on the ish, obviously, and the whole idea behind it is really surrounding Shabbat. And it's something that I didn't grow up doing. I grew up in a very secular household, like marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Seinfeld-esque high holiday Jew. And it wasn't until I was a young adult living in the city, I met my husband, and we had to figure out what Judaism meant to us. I'm very, like I said, traditional Ashkenazi. My husband is an Iraqi Persian Jew, so we didn't have any common ground. He had no idea what babka was. He had never had any of the dishes I grew up on. And likewise, I knew nothing about all the cuisine and dishes that are inherently Jewish to him. And it became this really interesting exploration that the two of us did. And as we were doing that, we were trying to figure out what Judaism was going to be for us. And we kept trying like different synagogues around the city, and we just weren't vibing with it. And then we discovered One Table, which is an incredible nonprofit for people in their 20s and 30s to create a sustainable and powerful Shabbat practice. And we never looked back. Neither of us grew up hosting Shabbat, and now it's something that we do every week religiously. And it's become super important and pretty much the whole focus of this book. The whole book surrounds dishes that are important to my upbringing, his upbringing, or they're things that I have made during these past few years of exploring Shabbat. So it's about entertaining Jewish hospitality and ritual in a modern sense. A lot of the recipes are not so healthy, as you can imagine, with a lot of shtetl foods that are heavy on the schmaltz, but I have a lot of recipes that also are kind of, again, modernized twists on a lot of classics, even if it's like Jewish adjacent, because there's so many foods that have become integrated in our communities. And even though they're not inherently Jewish, they're things that Jews love to eat. And I think that makes it a little bit Jewish. Today, we're going to be making a Iraqi roasted salmon. This is a recipe I learned from my mother-in-law that her mother used to make, and it's so incredible. She's someone who says, like, I hate fish. She won't eat fish. She never touches fish. This is the only fish she will eat. And what you do is we're going to make this mixture of caramelized onions with lemon, tomato paste, and a whole bunch of spices. And then pretty much like, this is a master sauce. You're going to make this paste and you just spread it on salmon and roast it. That being said, I'm going to show you everything. You can use this on anything. You could rub it on tofu and roast it on tofu for a vegetarian option. You could put it on chicken. You could put it on mushrooms. You could really do anything with it. And then to go with that, we're going to do a really awesome carrot dish. I have like jumbo carrots, but we'll get into that in a second. It's inspired by time I spent working at a restaurant in New York called ABC Kitchen. They're really well known for this roasted carrot salad, and I've just have been obsessed with it ever since. And it uses a lot of orange and cumin seed, and it's really easy to make all on one sheet pan, but it gets a little bit sweet, a little bit spiced, super tender and golden. Really great combo to kind of just switch up your roasted root vegetable game. And then last but not least, we're going to do a really easy one bowl apple cake. It's something that I started making for Rosh Hashanah, became super popular in my family. Now they want it all fall, all winter. And I'm going to make a few swaps from the recipe that you got, just because obviously healthy. In the recipe where you take a stick of butter and brown it, today we're going to use all olive oil because I'm really into baking with olive oil, and I think everyone really should just like use olive oil in their baking exclusively. I think there's really nothing that olive oil won't be good in terms of the baked good. But anyway, let's get cooking. Any questions, throw it in the chat. Just Jessica will scream it out to me, and I'm very good at multitasking. And let's get going. So over here, you have my kitchen. You have a giant thing. I got the Jewish bakery sent me a whole bunch of babka and stuff, so ignore that because that's not healthy. But we have 2 pounds of carrots here. This is from a local farm in New York. They happen to be huge. So I'm going to quarter them. Typically, I like to use like baby carrots, especially if you have the rainbow ones. I think they're super pretty. But this is about the size that we're looking for. I typically say anything that's thicker than 3/4 of an inch, cut it in half. Anything that's as thick as this, cut it in quarters. I'm gonna start throwing this onto a sheet pan, and I'll show you how we're gonna season this up.
Jake, we have a question about baking with coconut oil instead of butter.
Of course, you can bake with anything. I have been really into avocado oil recently. I think that coconut oil is great. Again, it's also a saturated fat. And at the same time, when you're working with coconut oil, it tends to, there are definitely some neutral ones, but it tends to impart some flavor. So it's great in many instances when coconut would be a flavor that goes well with it. And then there are other times when I don't want coconut in it. A perfect example is in my book, I do these date roasted Brussels sprouts. And to me, it's just, it uses a combo of like date syrup and chopped dates. And I think it's really nice because it gives it like that sweet and salty combo. But I use coconut oil just because I think the coconut oil mixed with the roasted dates gives it like this smoky, delicious, rich, flavored, almost mimics like a faux bacon.
Right. We have a couple of questions about the carrots.
Go for it.
Are the carrots peeled?
No, I love to keep the skin on. I scrub my carrots. You want to make sure they're super clean, but at the end of the day, the skin, it's so delicious. It's got tons of nutrients. And as long as you also clean out the tops, keep the tops on too. I love all of it. The most important thing is that you're just washing and scrubbing everything. I have a little vegetable scrubber that I just really go to town with all my root vegetables, but I try not to honestly peel anything when I cook, except for like potatoes, for mashed potatoes.
That's great. And if you use baby carrots, do you have to quarter them?
No, if they're anything that's like 3/4 of an inch thick or thinner is good to just keep whole. That's in the recipe in the book uses the photo. Here, I'll show you. It's actually one of my favorite photos in the book. Uses just some really nice local baby carrots. And to me, that is the best call. Because they get like super nice and golden and roasted, and the tips get like really crispy. So to me, that's always the best. The skin gets blistered, but in this case, it's still gonna be absolutely delicious. You really can't go wrong. That's typically like my thing is like, and I'm doing these wedges. You could also do them in coins. Let's say you wanted to speed up the process, not have it go so long. Great, cut them into slices. It'll roast a lot faster.
There was a question about the olive oil. Do you recommend any particular olive oil, extra virgin olive oil? Doesn't it impart a flavor?
It's always extra virgin. I'm going to show you 2 brands that I really love. This is the one that I use a lot. It's La Tourangelle. It's an organic olive oil based out of France, I believe. I don't know where they get their, I believe it's a French product. Product of Spain. There you go. French packers, Spanish olive oil, but I really love it. Also love these containers. They also make a sprayable version. Sorry, let me reach in my cabinet. They make a spray version, which I really love because I don't, instead of like using pan to spray or even baking pans, you could just use a little like olive oil spray, or if you just want like an even coating on vegetables, it works really well. That being said, for this, we're tossing it together, so it's not really an issue. This other brand, one of Oprah's favorite things this year, XAO. It's based out of Italy. It is an incredible woman, Black-owned company making olive oil, and it's so absolutely delicious.
And just for everybody watching, we will make a list of the products that Jake recommends so that we will send them in a follow-up to you so that you can have those at your hands, at your fingertips. Somebody wanted to know if this method would work with parsnips or other root vegetables.
100%. When I tell you, most of the time, like pretty much every Shabbat is a different kind of root vegetable. At least since I live in New York, I am using root vegetables half of the year because we got to cook and source locally. So it's carrots, it's a combination. Sometimes I'll even like do just a little bit of carrots, throw in parsnip, throw in radish. I love roasting radishes. People don't roast radishes enough. They're great raw, but they're also really great and peppery roasted. Same thing with, I'm trying to think what other vegetables I throw in. Literally anything, any root vegetable, you're good. Kohlrabi, that's been like pretty much my obsession. So I'm gonna go with 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm a big fan of like never enough olive oil. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw on a tablespoon of cumin seeds. I use the whole seeds just because they get nice and toasty. They impart a great flavor, while at the same time, you get the carrot. You can taste the roasted carrot, and the cumin almost infuses in the oil and still stays kind of separate. You could definitely use ground cumin, but I think the seeds are just so fragrant and delicious. The other thing I'm gonna do, and this is like a perfect example of, it calls for a tablespoon of cumin seeds. You can customize this however you'd like. So any type of whole seeds you wanna play with that you have in your pantry, throw a pinch in. I'm gonna add a little whole coriander. Coriander seeds are like probably my favorite ingredient, just because I find the flavor to be so rich and complex. It can go in both sweet and savory applications. It's very mild, it's a little bit floral, it's a little bit citrusy, and I think it's just really beautiful. Not in that recipe, but again, I personally believe, like, take all my recipes and run with it. When has a Jewish matriarch ever written down a recipe? Every recipe that I've done in this book that comes from like my family, my husband's family, I've had to transcribe because it's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that's how you can treat all my recipes too.
Somebody asked, their toaster oven has a convection as well as roast as well as bake. Which feature should she use for the carrots?
I would start exploring all of them. You won't know until you try them all. I would say typically convection is going to be really nice with roasting, just because they'll help get a little more air circulation so they get nice and golden and tender. I'm just going to add on a 1/4 teaspoon of chili flakes. I just think the little bit of peppery spice is really nice. If you are spice averse, you could just do some black pepper. You could omit it completely. You could do whatever. So that, not a ton. There's only one real main ingredient left, and that's 1 orange. It's going to be zested and juiced right onto the tray. What that does is the juice is going to help steam to cook the carrots evenly, and then when it completely evaporates, all the sugar in the orange juice is going to help the carrots caramelize and get nice and golden. Today, I actually didn't have oranges, but they had really great clementines at the market, so I'm going to use 2 clementines instead. You could use any citrus you really like. Meyer lemons would be great, especially for all the California people. You just want something that's going to be a little bit acidic, a little bit sweet, and give a little bit of liquid to the pan. I think that's the main thing when you're roasting root vegetables. It's typically all around the same time frame. I roasted it at 450 degrees for around 30 minutes. And that's typically the sweet spot for really great color, while also getting nice and tender. A little liquid helps steam and get the process going, and it'll evaporate completely so that you can still get that nice color.
Jake, can you clarify, was it chili flakes or crushed red pepper, or was it?
Crushed red pepper. It's crushed red pepper, chili flakes, same. But you can use any spice you like. If you like cayenne, go for some cayenne. Been really into this Turkish spice called Urfa Biber. It's a type of smoked chili pepper, and it's been so, so, so incredible in all of my cooking. So really just anything that's gonna add a little bit of spice. So you can go as mild as black pepper to as wild as anything else.
Do you turn the carrots while you're baking them?
We're gonna do it halfway through. I'll give it a little toss. I don't think it's so crucial at the end of the day. Even I never have an issue if the bottoms have the hard sear from the pan and the rest is just nice and golden and tender. So tossing it is never a bad thing. The main thing is like you just don't want to do it a lot. There's this term, what's it called? Talking to Adina Sussman, and she was saying that what Chrissy Teigen's thing is like DFWI, don't F with it, in the sense of with like foods, steaks, vegetables, where anything's really building up some flavor and caramelization, let it be, because it's gonna really like continue to get golden, and the more you open the oven, the more heat's gonna escape, the less beautiful your carrots will be. And last but not least, a ton of kosher salt. I like kosher salt just because it's really nice and pinchable. You get a nice little handful. I tend to go heavy on the salt just because we have multiple pounds of carrots. Now I'm just gonna toss this all together. My oven is preheated to 450 degrees. You can see all of the juice has pooled at the bottom. It looks nice, and honestly, this is like vinaigrette. It's pretty much carrots tossed in a cumin seed orange vinaigrette. Everything, this would be delicious if you just like skip the carrots and put in salad greens in a bowl. But instead, we're gonna have a really delicious, tangy, complex roasted carrots. All right, I'm gonna pop this into the oven. We'll check on it in like 15 minutes. I'll set a timer so we don't forget. And meanwhile, we're gonna go straight into our salmon.
Perfect. Could you line the pan with parchment paper?
No. When you are roasting vegetables, no parchment paper, no tin foil. I know you're gonna have to do a dish. That's it. But foil, parchment paper, parchment paper, 450 is fine, because like as Ray Bradbury has shown us, paper burns at 451, and that's really the issue. So if you're doing anything at like 475 broil, do not use parchment, will catch on fire. But even tin foil, you're not going to get the same color, you won't get the same caramelization. The whole point of a sheet pan is you want that direct contact. I would go so far as saying, if you really wanted to take it one step further, oftentimes what I'll do, and this is like if I'm really like, if I have time, because I'm a generally like, especially since all these recipes are meant to have been developed and tested in practice of Shabbat and hosting people. If I do happen to have some time, I'll preheat the sheet pan in the oven, toss the carrots and all that stuff in a bowl, and then you dump it onto the searing hot sheet pan, and that really gets the color going, that gets the caramelization going much faster. Onions. We're gonna chop some onions now. So this dish for the salmon, I can't talk it up enough. I think it's like, I call it like it's like my mother-in-law's secret sauce, because it's just so absolutely delicious. And it's just really nice, it's spicy, it's tangy, it's acidic. It uses, what they do is they have what they call Iraqi curry powder. And it's a little bit of potential Jewish history for people, because I feel like that's something that unfortunately we lose out, is the knowledge and learnings of so many different incredible Jewish communities throughout the diaspora. And something you might not know is the Iraqi Jews were quintessential in the spice trade with India. So a lot of Iraqi Jewish cooking is heavily influenced by Indian food. You'll see a lot of tamarind, curry powder, and as a result, as they've moved throughout the diaspora, that has come with them. So that's why you'll see some families, like after the Farhud in Iraq, when all the Jews were expelled, you have like instances of Iraqi Jews who ended up in Iran, like my husband's family, and they started making a lot of Persian dishes with curry powder. It's non-traditional, but of course, now it's become something that so many families do in Iran, both Jewish and not. So this is kind of an example of something that I learned along the way. I made it into like a simplified combination of spices, in the sense of it is like turmeric, cayenne, coriander, cumin, really just like delicious, easy to make, and good on anything, like I said. So I'm just gonna peel 2 yellow onions and we're gonna chop it up. We're gonna start cooking that down in some olive oil, and it's very, very easy to customize depending on what you want. I'm using little onion and some scallions just because I like to have the greens for garnish later on, so I'll use the whites to caramelize, but you could use any allium you want. So in the spring, you could do this whole thing with leeks and it would be so delicious. There is no wrong answer. I'll put you down. Cool.
Do you have any tips for like the when you're cutting onions and the tears get in your eyes and it just
I'll tell you, really comes down to one thing. Everyone looks for a hack. There is only one thing that works, and that is the goggles. I will tell you that right now. But the reason that you're crying, it's because you need to sharpen your knife. That's it. The sharper your knife is, the cleaner the slices are, the less cell walls you break. If you have a dull knife, you end up breaking more cell walls in your onion, and as a result, you're releasing more of the compound that makes you cry. So don't invest in anything. Don't light a candle or put it in the fridge. Just either sharpen your knives yourself or find an incredible resource at any culinary shop or cutlery shop to sharpen them for you.
Great.
So I'm going for a pretty fine chop, nice little mince, because we want this to cook down. Doesn't have to be perfect, of course, because this is all going into a sauce, which is my favorite thing. You even do this in the food processor if you really wanted. It get pretty fine, and it would take a little bit longer to caramelize because it would be a little juicier, but something you could totally still do.
Jake, what kind of knives do you recommend?
I love Zwilling. I love Zwilling because I think German knives are more my forte, but that's also based on the size of my hand. I'm not very big into Japanese knives because they tend to be a little too small, and I end up just bashing my knuckles into the cutting board. So this is my personal preference. Everyone has their own, so I think it's important to go for quality. So high quality knives are huge, but there are so many different varieties in that field that you really just have to play around and see what feels right for you.
Are there any other fish that this recipe works well with?
Any fish, you name it. When I tell you this sauce is good on everything. If you wanted to just put it on your face as a skincare routine, it would be just as great. I'm telling you, it's you make the sauce and then you let the sauce tell you what it should go on. Any protein you have in your fridge. I'm trying to think what other things it would be great with. It would be honestly great on a flatbread to make a pizza. It would be great on, I said tofu, I said any fish, any chicken, use as a marinade for steak. You could really go wild.
And I know in the notes you had said that it freezes well too, right?
Freezes beautifully. It's one of those things that if I'm going to make it, if I'm going to cook down all the stuff, I'll often do a double or triple batch because then I have it for next time. And that's something I actually do it a lot with Shabbat because this was such a popular dish for my Shabbats. And it's so easy to make because all of the prep is done in advance. You can make this sauce days in advance, keep it in your fridge, and then you just rub it on your protein and throw it in the oven. And if you're doing salmon, it cooks up in 15 minutes. And I'm talking about a 3-pound plank of salmon will be ready in 15 minutes. And that feeds a lot of people. And you really can't beat that when you're doing Shabbat.
We had a couple of other questions come in. What brand of spices do you use and where do you buy them?
Whole lot. My guess is everyone on this call, go think long and hard. When's the last time you bought spices? If it was over a year ago, you should get rid of them. spices lose their half-life is actually quite short in terms of like peak quality. That being said, they'll still get the job done. My mother still uses the same spices. They're probably over a decade old. I have no doubt she's still using spices that are a decade old, and that's fine because that's the truth she wants to live, and she enjoys it, and that to me is all that matters in the kitchen. For me personally, I'm very, very into burlap and barrel. It's single origin spices, so it's something to think about in this modern world of like typically where are spices coming from. Well, I'll tell you where they're coming from. They're coming from often third world countries where people are underpaid, and it is kind of handled by a large conglomerate that's either blending a whole bunch of spices from a whole bunch of different places. It's not really treating the earth well. It's not really paying the laborers fairly. So finding companies like Burlap and Barrel that go to one place, source everything from one place, pay everyone a fair wage, to me, that's priceless. The quality is top notch, but also ethically, I just stand by it so much. Other ones, Simply Organic is a great one for like just basic ones. New York Shook, they make incredible harissa, but they also make awesome spices. I'm trying to think what else. Those are the main ones. Those are the main ones I stand by.
If you use chicken, if you use chicken, do you leave the skin on the chicken when you're cooking it?
I mean, yes. Typically, I would say for thighs. For this sauce goes really well on boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'm not like a big boneless, skinless chicken breast person, but in this case, it's actually it's delicious. That's probably like peak boneless, skinless chicken breast is with this sauce smothered on top and just roasted in the oven.
It looks like your cutting board has rubber guards to keep it in place. Was curious what brand of cutting board it is.
OXO, OXO. It's pretty standard in terms of like silicone cookware. They also make like the standard measuring cups. It's a really popular brand, really great, really easy. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna heat let me put this down, 3 tablespoons of oil. In a little nonstick skillet. And then I'm going to throw in my onions and start to cook that down. Then we'll throw in some spices and some tomato paste and get it going.
How long would you roast chicken breasts for if you were making the sauce? Making it with
I would set my oven for 450 degrees. I would throw it on a sheet pan, cover it in sauce, and I would start with probably 20 minutes. And then I would take my thermometer and stick it in and see if it hit 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it did, I'd pull it. And if it didn't, I would throw it back in 5-minute integrals until it did. And I think it's so important that everyone gets a thermometer. It is the #1 kitchen tool you need because it's going to help just change your life in terms of having really juicy protein. All right. Adding this in. And I'm happy to answer literally any question about anything, whether it's about this recipe or anything else your heart desires.
We did get a question that came in the registrations. Somebody was curious what made you choose cooking as a career?
So it was something that I started exploring at a very young age. I was in high school and it became this way that I got to build community. I wasn't very popular, didn't have a lot of friends, and I started throwing these dinner parties, and it became this positive feedback loop of the way that cooking for others made them feel, made me feel, and I was really obsessed with it. So I went straight from high school to the Culinary Institute of America upstate. From there I worked in a few restaurants in the city, Danielle and ABC Kitchen, and then I switched into media to start doing recipes for different magazines and websites and TV stuff. And now obviously the book. So this is just kind of where I've been, and I think Shabbat became that equal opportunity to build community and find the power of hospitality that I love.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, of course, somebody is interested in which kind of thermometer you recommend. Is there a specific one?
Let's see. Actually, mine is I'm currently I'm doing if anyone is subscribed to Food Network Kitchen, the app program through Food Network, I'm currently filming this whole week a whole series on Jewish baking, which will be coming later this year. And that's where my thermometer is, but I also believe it's OXO, the OXO. They make everything, so it's standard. The most important thing is I like a digital one. I like it's just gonna tell you the number, instant read, can't beat that. And then, yeah, there's some fancy ones. There's like a probe, and then, so you have something in the oven, and it tells your phone exactly when it's cooked. That's great. I have one of those too. Do I use it? No. Because as long as you have an instant read thermometer, simple. Anything will work.
Could you use sweet onions with this?
100%. I love using sweet onions. Any alliums work. In the spring, those beautiful like spring onions, the little bulbous ones with the long greens, use that. Throw the greens in. Leeks, do leeks. Combo, do whatever you want. This whole point is we want nice caramelized onions, and that flavor is just like the best. I think it's so funny because it really is integral to Jewish cooking. If you think of Ashkenazi food, caramelized onions is one of the most pronounced flavors, given the fact that so much of Ashkenazi food is based on schmaltz, and schmaltz itself can't be finished until you add onions to fry in the chicken fat as a flavoring. And then you obviously have the fried onions and the gribenas, and it just becomes this kind of crux and base level of everything that we cook. That being said, a lot of cultures and cuisines love caramelized onions too, so it's just something that I lean into a lot.
We are getting a lot of requests about your, if you have a good challah recipe.
Oh, I have the best challah recipe, personally. That's my personal opinion. I spent a lot of time working on it. It was something that was always a special occasion thing, and then with COVID, I started making it every week, and that's when I really got into it and actually changed the recipe in my cookbook last minute because we finished it. It got sent to printer in the middle of quarantine, and I had just switched it up to kind of match a recipe that could be made every Friday, and that's just the one that I wanted to go with. And it is in my cookbook, and it's going to be incredible. It's very easy to follow. I do a whole step-by-step walkthrough of how to do the 6 strand, a lot of videos on my Instagram of different challah braids because I've gotten into the different strands. And I'll tell you right now, it comes down to 3 things. You are sticking to your recipe too hard and not adding either enough flour or too much flour because you want your dough to be tacky but not sticky. You are not kneading your dough enough. If you are doing your dough completely in a mixer, I typically do my dough sometimes completely by hand, but oftentimes start it in a mixer, you gotta finish it by hand. You need to build up enough of a gluten structure. People are afraid they're gonna overwork it. I can tell you right now, you're not gonna be able to overwork your dough. And with your KitchenAid or with your hands, not gonna happen. So you're not kneading it enough. And then lastly, people don't proof their dough enough. They see the recipe says an hour, hour and a half, but they don't understand that. Like when I'm in Florida versus when I'm in New York, challah it could be a 2-hour time difference in terms of the proof time because so many factors are at play, the temperature, where you are, the humidity of that day. So getting to know the dough, getting to understand what are the visual cues you're looking for is so important.
You're getting a lot of love in the chat.
Good. We love love.
How many courses do you usually serve for Shabbat dinner?
Depends. It depends what the vibe is. When I do, my husband obviously loves when I do like the Persian feast. So I'll do one giant stew, a giant thing of tahdig, the crispy Persian rice, and then a few cold sides that I could prep in advance, like a cucumber yogurt sauce, a Shirazi salad, which is like an Arabic like tomato cucumber salad, maybe something else. But typically, for making challah, one main, a big side, like especially during COVID, the typical deal is it is challah, challah, like a full spatchcock chicken over roasted vegetables and some kind of starch, which is typically like smashed potatoes or mashed potatoes, depending on what they want. I just saw someone say that their son follows me on TikTok, which is something that's happening more and more often, which I am of this like in-between generation as a millennial where I have Gen Xers or people who recognize me from Instagram, and then people's kids are now recognizing me from TikTok, which I think is very funny. But I think that's the most fun of all of this in terms of the book and everything of kind of showing a new generation, like not Jewish pride, because I don't want to make it like so serious, because it really isn't that. But it's something that I talk about in the introduction, that for secular Jews in America, like Judaism has become indifference. It is, you're Jewish. You do, like, yes, we all go to the temple for Yom Kippur. We all go to the bar mitzvahs, but like on a daily basis, like where is Jewish ritual? And even any of those things, like what does that mean to you? A huge part of what I'm doing with the cookbook is for anyone who pre-orders the book, they're going to have access to a digital Haggadah that I wrote. And the whole reason behind it was that I found that every year my family was going through, the classic Maxwell House Haggadah that I feel like most people use. And it was just being done with like, all right, we just go through the motions. This is what happened. And all of these Jewish rituals are really built as these awesome opportunities to contextualize ethical and moral conversations in the like present world, and that never happens. And to me, I think that needs to begin with like showing a new generation like what they're inheriting and how they get to make it their own. And I've always been a big proponent of making Judaism my own. Some people don't like that, but that's a them problem, not a me problem. And there we go.
I love that. Is the onion getting brown?
Yes, so I'll show you. We're pretty much there. It's going to take about 6 to 8 minutes. I want it to get nice and soft, get some nice color. Here is something that I'll tell you right now. I love it this way, where we're doing it at like a higher temp. I'm getting a nice char on it. Some pieces are getting darker than others. And it's still kind of keeping its shape intact. There is a secret though. If you throw in about a half a teaspoon of baking soda, it destroys the cell walls and your onion will turn to mush. It becomes completely disintegrated, and you can cook it down and caramelize it into this really rich onion paste. So if you are someone who typically hates onions or doesn't like bits of onions in your dishes, if you try that with the baking soda, it comes out so delicious because you get all of that flavor of the sweetness, but you don't get the texture that's often like, I find when people are like, oh, I don't like onions. If they for most dishes where like a soup or anything where it's blended and you don't see it, they love it. They don't know it. So this is a case in which that would happen. All right, I'm going to throw in some spices now. I'm going to start with 2 teaspoons of coriander. Teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric gives it such incredible flavor and color and has great anti-inflammatory benefits. The main thing with turmeric is it's fat soluble though. So you will not get the benefits of turmeric unless you're having it in a dish that has fat in it. So even if like you're making a tea, like a turmeric tea, that won't give you as much benefits if you don't like, I don't know, throw in a little coconut milk. Teaspoon of cumin.
I'll let you finish with the spices. There's a couple of questions that have come in as well. So
Of course. And then I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne or any chili you like. Boom. I'm using my Urfa Biber instead of cayenne today just because I'm cooking for myself. And then we are going to get this down. I'm going to actually switch just because I have the turmeric and it will stain my... So what I'm doing is I'm just like blooming the spices. After we cooked our onions, you want to toast the spices. It's going to help bring out a lot of those flavors, the aromatics, in terms of the oils that's in there. You just do it for a minute or two until you can really smell it, and then we'll add in the tomato paste.
Someone wanted to know if that hack works for mushrooms. I think they're talking about with the baking soda.
I've never tried it. I would be intrigued to see how it would work. I would say it probably might, but probably not, because mushrooms are obviously not, they're a fungus and not a vegetable. So I don't know how the baking soda will react with the walls of the mycelium versus like the cellulose walls in a vegetable. So that's an interesting, I would say, experiment.
Do you have another alternative spice for the turmeric?
Omit it. Use whatever you like. What do you like to cook with? If you like smoked paprika, there's some smoked paprika in. If you really love cumin, do a lot more cumin. If you do not like make this your own. I think you put a little bit of everything. Start to get to know what tastes good, what doesn't taste good, what are the combinations you like. Until you experiment, you won't know. To me, I would say start to one spice at a time. Start to go outside your comfort zone, whether that becomes like sumac, which is like my obsession, or I don't know, anything else.
Back to your Haggadah, did the if you order your book on Amazon, do you get to access it? If you get it from an independent bookstore, how do we
pre-order it anywhere? And it's going to get released in a few weeks, and it'll pretty much just end up on my website as a way that you can just plug in your order number from your receipt, and you'll be able to download the Haggadah. So support your local bookstores, get it on Amazon out of convenience, whatever you'd like, you'll still get the Haggadah.
Great.
I'm throwing in a 6-ounce can of tomato paste. This is great. I love cooking with tomato paste because it's just super concentrated. It caramelizes really well. And in something like this, where we're making like a sauce that's gonna coat something, it's ideal.
You are making cookbook sales as we speak.
I love it. I mean, I really hope everyone cooks from it and enjoys it. And I did a lot of work in terms of the introduction, has a whole kind of guide to Shabbat, with prayers, alternative readings. Like I have if for example, for a lot of people, it's like we're in a new world where people are, I don't know, they might not be comfortable saying prayers in Hebrew if they can't speak Hebrew. They might not want to say God in a prayer. And to me, like every aspect of the ritual of Shabbat is so important for so many different reasons, whether it be like what the meaning of the Kiddush is, to the concept of the challah and breaking bread with others. So I have some alternative readings that I helped kind of curate with the help of One Table, to make like a really nice modern guide to hopefully inspire more people to get into Shabbat like I am.
Somebody was asking if the scallions also went into the pan with the onions.
Yes, but just the whites and the greens, the light greens. So I kept the dark greens because this is what we're going to chop. This is really nice for garnish. So I'm going to throw this on top of the salmon.
Are there any substitutes for tomato paste? And then we also had a question about the difference between tomato paste and tomato sauce.
Yes, so tomato paste is super concentrated. Let me show you. Like this is, it is sauce that's cooked down until it is super, super thick. There really isn't a substitute for it. If you use sauce, you could definitely do sauce and then just really cook it down for a long time. I'll tell you, like we've been discussing, we're trying to get you healthy meals without like taking all day. Trust me, I love to cook all day. There are plenty of recipes that I have no issue cooking all day. That will be one of them if you want to cook down sauce in terms of that. You could pivot and do this same style in a saucier format, which would be really great for like a braise, if you wanted to braise chicken or fish in this oniony, tomatoey, lemony sauce. That'd be delicious. But in terms of something that you could just spread on top of a protein and roast in the oven, tomato paste is your best bet. And you can get it anywhere. Every grocery store in the country sells tomato paste.
And if you're not somebody's not supposed to eat tomatoes, is there a
That is an excellent challenge. I would say do the caramelized onions with all of those spices and lemon, and then just cook it down. This would probably be a great time for that baking soda where it breaks down into a paste and you'll have a much more spreadable sauce, and then just have it be a spiced onion sauce on your fish or on your chicken.
and I know we're running a little bit over because we're having so much fun. So I just want to remind people that the webinar is being recorded. It will be emailed to you if you registered for our program. We'll be sending it out in a week or so, and then hopefully in the next week. And it will also be on our website. So if you need to jump off, don't worry, you will be able to access it later.
I'm having fun, so I'm here. I'm here all night. So this is cooking down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab out a lemon and I'm going to zest that into this tomato sauce. We're pretty much there. I'm just looking to caramelize it a little bit by cooking down your tomato paste on this like direct flame. You just start to bring out some of those natural sugars. Again, you do not, between the onions and the tomatoes, you're going to get a nice sweetness without adding any sugar. We're just going to use all natural sweeteners. All right, I'm going to season it up with a little salt. I would say this is a good thing. Like, for example, I'm a young, spry boy who does not listen to his mother in the sense of high blood pressure or any of those things, which I don't have. So I can have salt. I'm not my doctor hasn't warned me against it. But that being said, this is a perfect sauce for anyone who is looking to cut back on salt, just because you have spice, acidity, tang. You have all of these other flavors that creates a dish that's really powerful without a ton of salt.
I love there's some conversation going on in the chat about what types of substitutions there could be for tomato paste, like possibly pumpkin or red bell peppers.
Actually, that's so funny. That was the first thing that just came to my mind. Is there's this incredible Spanish sauce called the romesco, and it's one of my favorites, and it's roasted red peppers and almonds and typically sometimes apricots. And to me, that's something that you can pivot in this sense. There's also a lot of Middle Eastern variations in that same realm, but I would do roasted red peppers pureed in the food processor into a nice little paste, throw that into your pan, cook it down a little bit until it's thickened with your onions. And even like, I think this would be really nice with like a butternut squash puree. If you wanted to do that, if you wanted to do sweet potato. But again, then we're going into some other things in terms of what would be really good, like smothered onto a protein. I would stick to either tomatoes, bell peppers, pumpkin maybe. I would say you could take this whole mixture of the onions and the spices and throw it into anything. Throw it into mashed sweet potatoes, delicious. Anything, you could use this with anything.
Okay. How much kosher salt do you think that you used with just now?
It's going to be different for everyone to taste. Start with a pinch, taste it. If you want more, add more. If it's good, great. You could always add more. You can't take away. So my guidance always is like, start. There's some baking in which I have true guidelines in terms of all the baking recipes obviously have guidelines, but in general, I think if you can taste something, you got to just go with your gut and slowly incorporate, season as you go. That's a huge part. You're going to add so much more salt if you just season at the end. If you then add a little pinch at every step. As you're cooking down the onions, add a pinch.
Yeah. Someone made the carrots and said they came out delicious.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Okay, I am going to turn this off now. And I'm going to grab out my lemon. And a key part is I'm not actually using the juice. All I'm doing is using the zest here just because I want to keep this mixture. I want to keep it nice and tangy, but I want to keep it thick because this is going on some salmon and I do not want to like have it get too juicy because we want it to get nice and golden in the oven. Beautiful. And what I'll do is I'll save this lemon and then you could chop it up for wedges to serve on the side. You're looking for about 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. And then let me grab a little And this is the sauce I'm talking about. This is the master sauce. Honestly, one day I'm going to sell it in jars and I'm going to make a fortune and I'll be able to retire from everything because it's just so delicious. You're going to want to put it on everything. Let me grab a little tasting spoon.
Could you use pickled lemon?
Ooh, that is an excellent, excellent point. You 100% could, and I do all the time. The main thing is, A, I'm trying to keep it true to my mother-in-law's recipe. B, this is already so new for some people. If I threw in another ingredient, sometimes they're like, oh, too much, I'm gonna walk away. Which, I mean, is a whole other issue in terms of people and their adventure, in terms of palates. But yes, preserved lemons are amazing in this. Amazing. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just chop it up into like chunks and then just sprinkle it on top of I'll leave like, I'll put lemon zest in this, and then on top of that, I'll put the chunks on top of this sauce when you bake it so they get nice and crispy. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a North African condiment. It's literally lemons packed in a jar with salt, lemon juice, pickled in its own juices. Absolutely delicious. They become jammy. You can eat the rinds. It's truly, truly next level.
There were some questions about the olive oil and the heating point of it.
So with extra virgin, like if you're using this, again, it can go with medium high, not really an issue. You can't fry in it. You shouldn't be pan frying. You shouldn't be doing anything in which it's going to be smoking. You just want to get it hot and then throw in your stuff. For example, caramelizing onions, it's great because we're not going for like, you're not doing that on high heat or else you're going to burn your onions. There's anything in which your food would burn, so will your olive oil. If you want it to go with like a really like, you're looking to sear something, you're looking to cook steak or cook chicken or cook fish and get that beautiful golden sear, that's when you want to go into a really neutral oil. I love avocado oil. To me, that's been my absolute favorite. I use it for, honestly, everything from my challah to baking to frying.
Speaking of your challah, there were a bunch of people who wanted to know whether or not you approved of bread machines for kneading.
Yeah, to start. You could get it going. Again, a lot of the thing that I'm trying to be really sensitive about, because listen, I'm young and I feel like I'm having carpal tunnel after a while of like too much bread kneading. It's a lot on your body. That's why like bread bakers, they like literal bread bakers, they fall apart. They just, their body is destroyed from baking bread. I think that you can 100% use those techniques and those appliances to help you, but at the end, a few minutes on the counter, a minute. Give me 1 minute of kneading it, get to feel your dough. It's gonna make the world of difference. You're gonna be able to know really if you need to add more flour or not. I'm telling you that's it. All right, our carrots are looking so incredibly gorgeous. Give them a little toss. They just need a few more minutes, and I'll show you exactly what we're working with. We got some nice color. The orange juice has evaporated, and it's becoming this like really beautiful glaze. So the carrots are super shiny, and like we're getting a gorgeous sear. I love crispy, tender carrots. These only need about 5 more minutes. If even, let me say, yeah, like 5 more minutes. And meanwhile, we're gonna get this on top of our salmon. And I'll finish that up. And then, since this is obviously going very over, maybe we'll hold the cake for another time and I can share, I have a video online of me making it, just as an extra bonus.
So we can put the cake in our follow-up email, the link to your cake demonstration.
100%. Okay, so I'm going, again, sheet pan. I'm gonna use a smaller one just because. Something that I love is having different size sheet pans for different applications. Half sheet pans are so amazing, and so are quarter sheet pans. Truly the best. You can just use it. You're just doing something small, 1 or 2 people. Use this. I'm gonna grab in this, and we're gonna line it with tin foil. For the salmon, yes, you do not want the skin sticking to your pan. That will be a mess. We're also roasting it. We're not like flipping it around. We're not looking for that really hard sear. You're not gonna get that. If you wanted to like sear your fish separately in a nonstick pan and then top it with this tomato mixture, that would work, but I like to roast it all together. Do I use nonstick foil? Not really. Sometimes when my in-laws always have it, so that's what I do. I actually use, I love If You Care because it's 100% recycled foil, which just makes me feel a little bit better about myself. Not much, but a little. The key part is with any foil, you always want to be using the matte side.
A couple of questions about your pan.
Yeah.
Can you use parchment paper?
So for this one, technically no, because the recipe calls to roast it at 475. You want a high temp because we want that nice golden color without overcooking your fish. Fish cooks really quickly in the oven, really quickly. I love broiled salmon. Your salmon's done in 5 minutes. We're roasting at 475. I say for a full 3-pound plank, it's gonna be 15 minutes to 20 minutes. For today, I'm gonna be doing individual fillets just because, like I said, because the sauce is so versatile, you could do it on a whole salmon, you could do it on individual fillets, you could do it on tofu, vegetables, chicken. So really, like, parchment's not a good call. Foil is better in terms of preventing any risk of burning. But, yeah, there are no buts. I don't know what I was gonna say. But that's just it.
There's amazement in how clean your pans are. Is there anything special that you do?
You scrub them, you clean them. It's the thing. My husband's always like, oh, leave it for tomorrow. Look, I'll clean it in the morning. Which he wouldn't. I would just have to clean it in the morning. And at the end of the day, the main issue with that is that I just want to get everything clean as soon as I'm done cooking. Everything has to be clean because the longer it sits, the grease, it stains your pans, it stains everything, and then it just becomes impossible to get off. That being said, I am me. I'm a lunatic. I want to make sure everything is nice and clean. Other people are not like that, and that's okay too. Some really great options for pans. I've just gotten the two Great Jones, a friend of mine's company. She makes really awesome Dutch ovens and cooking pans as well as sheet pans. They're really pretty and stylish. Or Nordic ware. Nordic ware for like the classic sheet pans are great.
I was asking about aluminum pans and if they're okay to use for cooking.
I don't know. I've never used them. I've never used aluminum. I would recommend Googling it. I'm sorry. I can't help you with that one. I think in general, I tend to go with like whatever is the most. I just look for the highest quality. That's the most streamlined, and to me, that's a lot of these other stainless steel pans or whatever the hell they're made out of. All right. I got my fillets. I got 4 fillets. It's a little late in New York City, so we already had dinner. So this is now going to be meal prep for the week, which is really great with this recipe. Is that the we're not going to overcook it, which is a huge part between having fresh fish and not overcooking it. Is the number one thing to prevent your fish from tasting fishy. The second part is the tomatoes and the onions are such a strong flavor, especially with the lemon, that it almost preserves the salmon. It stays fresh for like a day or two and still tastes like so delicious, not like it's old at all. All right, what I'm gonna do, so one of the bad things about my apartment building is the vent fan will automatically turn on. I have no control over that, but I'll just speak up a little louder. I'm going to spoon the tomato onion mixture directly onto our salmon.
About how many ounces is that? About how many ounces are each fillet?
8 ounces. I love a good 8-ounce filet, just in terms of meal prep. Again, there's also no harm in getting a giant, like a plank, roasting the whole thing up, and then, whatchamacall, and then just having it in the fridge for a day or two of eating. But I'm just gonna use a spoon and spread it into a nice even layer. And this way it's gonna roast up and get nice and golden.
Lots of questions about the salmon. People are curious whether farm-raised salmon is okay, whether you can make it with skinless salmon.
Yeah, I try to only use wild salmon. Farm-raised is fine, especially like organic farm-raised salmon. But at the end of the day, the salmon that's still, it's like the salmon that's eating grain. It's not necessarily natural. There are a lot of aquaponics farms that I actually love for farm-raised fish. Typically it's not salmon. I don't know of a ton of aquaponics that are doing salmon, but there are definitely some. And aquaponics, if you're unfamiliar with, is the process of like farm raising fish as well as doing hydroponic like gardening, so like vegetable farming, and then they have it be like a closed ecosystem in which the oxygen that comes out of the greenhouses is used to oxygenate the water. The waste from the fish is then used as the nutrients for the vegetables, and it just becomes this really incredible like future of farming and sustainable everything. So I'm really into any aquaponics farms, but in general, I think wild, as long as it's a fish that's sustainably caught, go for it.
Skinless, that's fine too. However you prefer.
Say that one more time.
If it's skinless, that's fine. Or you recommend it to have the skin on.
You could do it either way. I keep the skin on for this just because I'm not really worried about it. It's gonna come right off. It's gonna stick to the foil, and it just becomes like this holder for the fish that I can just lift up, so that if it was skin off, then the fish would stick to the foil. This way, the skin sticks to the foil, and I can lift up the salmon fillet super easily. Okay, and the last thing, optional, another little sprinkling of salt. We obviously season this, but we didn't season the salmon itself. We want to make sure everything is nice and flavorful.
You can add harissa paste to the tomato sauce if you want.
Let me get my headphones, since my vent fan is getting in the way of me hearing everything super clearly. Perfect. Say that one more time for me.
Sure. Would you add harissa paste to the tomato sauce if you wanted to?
One more time.
The harissa, add harissa.
100%. Oh my God, I'm going to show you this brand I'm really obsessed with right now. I love New York Shook, I mentioned that, but it's this one called the Hamza brand. And it's really absolutely delicious, smoky, hot harissa. If you're unfamiliar, it's a Tunisian chili paste, came with Tunisian Jews to Israel, entered the diaspora of Israeli food, and it's super, super delicious. Okay, I'm going to throw this into the oven, and then pull out the carrots. And I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and that's going to be more than enough for that salmon. I'll probably check it a little bit less. I have the most gorgeous tray of carrots now. You have the beautiful color, the cumin seeds that stick to it, the glaze from that orange juice from the oil. It looks greasy, but it's not actually like oil because we only added a few tablespoons. It's that reduced orange juice, which is so great. How do you keep the carrots hot while the salmon cooks? These carrots are burning hot. They'll stay hot for a while, and then just flash them back in the oven. So like, let's say if the salmon has 10 minutes, maybe in 7 minutes I'll throw the carrots back in for a few. This is honestly it's such a sleeper hit because it's such a simple recipe, not a lot of ingredients, but such care and attention to carrots make it taste so much better. I grew up, my mother literally, I kid you not, she has her dishes. Like, she makes incredible latkes, so many things she does really well. But she would always do, like, she would throw baby carrots in a bowl with a little bit of water and microwave them until they were tender, and then like just season them and put them on the table. And like that's what we grew up knowing was like carrots as a side. And that's obviously, looking back, was very sad versus these, which are very full of love and care and attention.
When you review the 475, or is it?
I bumped it up to 475. You could do this at any temp. For example, let's say you're doing something else at a different temperature that's more important. Do it at 450, keep it at 450, and then it's just going to take a little bit longer. Maybe not, might not get as golden, so when you're done, when it's finished cooking, you just turn on the broiler for a few minutes to get a little more color. There are really ways that you can like customize whatever you would like into your meal. So make every recipe work for you. Do not work for the recipe. There are obviously recipes you want to follow to a T, but in general, you can make adjustments. I'd probably do 2 teaspoons. You're gonna get it, since it's ground, you're packing in a lot more. You have to remember, like, it's the same thing with kosher salt versus table salt. We measure imperial in America, so by volume, versus everywhere else, which is by grams. Ground cumin, you're able to pack in a lot more into a tablespoon than whole seeds. So therefore, I would probably just do 2 teaspoons, mix it in. And you could also, again, if you're not using whole seeds or you don't have cumin seeds, what whole seeds do you have? Do you have caraway? Do you have fennel? Do you have coriander? Play around with it. Season this however you like. I just really think that the texture of whole spices makes such a difference. I mean, you're just with me. We're hanging out. We're making dinner.
We feel like you're in my kitchen, or I'm in your.
That's how it should be. That's how I always like it to be. Yeah, this is it. I mean, when I tell you the whole goal of my book, the whole goal of that whole process was making sure that everything was accessible, attainable, and delicious. And it's my job, so I can attest to the fact that the recipes all work. They're all understandable, and they are all Jewish. There you go.
We have a couple more questions. What's the most surprising or fun part becoming more well-known?
Of becoming what?
Of becoming recognized.
Okay. Oh my God, Cindy Tobin. I know your son, I believe. I think we went to high school together. So it's the celebrities. It's like, I'm not gonna lie. I don't consider myself anything. I'm just someone. I like to be I don't want like huge levels of fame. I just like where I'm at right now, and I'm just gonna hover here for as long as I can. But like, I posted this video last night of surprising my mother with the first copy of my book, and it was very sweet, and she saw it and she was freaked out. She starts hysterically crying. And Sarah Jessica Parker follows me and commented a really sweet note on it and has sent me some sweet messages. Like, I'm doing a whole bunch of Instagram lives to celebrate the book. So starting February 25th, which is the first night of Purim, I'm doing a high's worth of Instagram giveaways and lives. So from February 25th, 18 days later, takes me through book launch and the first week of my book being out. So every day is going to be a different celebration with like giving away everything from cookware, knives, spices, halva, everything you can imagine. But also, I'm going to be doing an Instagram Live with different people who I love and respect. And if you love Katie Couric, she's going to be cooking with me one day. If you love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Rachel Bloom is going to be cooking with me. And I think that idea of having the ability to connect with other people, and I think social media does that really well in the sense that like everyone's just a person. Everyone loves to eat, especially the people who are Jewish. Like they have some connection to Judaism, and that's really nice. Even if it's little or big or anything, it just becomes something that you get to connect on, and it makes everyone feel a little bit more human, the world feel a little bit smaller. And that's, I would say, is the nice thing. Not like the celebrity in the sense of like, oh, celebrities, but in the sense of like really just making everyone know that like we're all just human.
Love that. A lot of new fans who are Shabbat is going crazy. The best cooking demo ever.
But it's my favorite. I like chatting, answering questions. I don't like to just like do demos. Doing demos is like fine, but it's not the same. This is pretty much there. I like to take it out. Oh, of course you can't see it, but you get beautiful little golden color from the tomato and the onions. I'm gonna throw this in for a few more minutes, but I like my salmon medium. And now I have these individual fillets I get to throw in the fridge and just pull out for lunch throughout the week, especially since I'm filming again tomorrow. Now I get to make sure to know that my husband will be fed and I can go do my own thing.
And I thought, how long can you
I would say keep it in the fridge for up to 4 days, and then in the freezer for up to 6 months. I'm telling you, these are the best carrots ever. Like I'm just gonna eat. I'm eating this pan alone in my apartment.
You're making us all hungry.
It takes no time. It takes 30 minutes. You throw it all on a tray, you throw it in the oven, you forget about it. I'm going to turn off my oven, and then hopefully it should turn off. And if anything, I could just also move away. So while we go over here, we'll let that keep going.
Perfect. So we just had a couple of last questions, and then while the salmon is finished up, or are we finished with the salmon?
Yeah, it's gonna come out. It's got a few more minutes, and I'll just pull it out of the oven. Again, it only takes like 10 minutes. It's super fast, super easy, and you get to customize it however you want. So like, take the sauce, spread it on whatever you like, go wild.
And I love seeing all of the different questions in the chat. Just adding pomegranate. There's a question about whether or not what wine you would recommend.
So this is all spicy food and it's seafood. So I would actually go with a super fruit-forward white wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand would be really nice with it. Even like dessert wine, we typically don't think of that as something you would have with like a savory dinner, but with spicy food, sweet wine is so good. Or bubbles. Anything sparkling is going to be great.
While Jake is getting his salmon, I'm going to ask my colleague Amy to put the evaluation for this program in the chat. Your feedback is really helpful a lot, and we would greatly appreciate knowing a lot of this program, and it does inform our future program. Pull that out. I also want to let you know about some upcoming programs. We have a program coming up on Monday called Navigating Difficult Conversations with Loved Ones and Family. It's Monday, January 25th at 1 p.m. It's a free national webinar focused on providing you with content to navigate difficult conversations with family, friends, and loved ones. And save the date for our next Sharsheret in Cooking program on March 17th with Luana Malstein at 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on March 17th. And I think Jake's back.
Hello.
Hello. So Amy has put the chat, the information about some of our upcoming webinars in the chat, and we're just so excited. So excited that you could be here with us today. And, we have so many people who are just new fans of yours, and hopefully will be ordering your cookbook and getting the Haggadah, and just we're really excited to have you be a part of Sharsheret.
Truly my pleasure. Like I said, it's always love to just bring people in the kitchen, have fun, make it very clear that cooking is not no fuss, just have fun with it.
Thank you. We are going. I saw a question about the cake. Oh, thank you, Amy. Yes, we're going to, because we went over time, we're not going to be making the cake today, but we are going to send you a video of Jake making the cake as a part of our follow-up email, which will have this recording as well as other information regarding the different spices and tools that Jake recommended throughout the program.
It's so easy. It's one bowl. You can't mess it up. It's truly so easy.
So, great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We are thrilled that you were here to join us today, and I think Jake is going to show us our finished product, and we are just thrilled to have Jake here tonight with us, sharing these fun stories and just really wonderful ways to put a modern twist on our Shabbat dinner. And again, thank you to Miriam for sharing her story with us. We're so grateful to all of you for being here. Please, if you need to reach us for our support and find more about our free resources, Amy's put the information, our email address, as well as our website and phone number in the chat box. So please feel free to contact us. We are here for you.
So here is the finished salmon. Again, only took 10 minutes. Boom. Take a bite first. You can see it's still super juicy, just cooked through. The tomato and onion mixture started to get some nice color, seasoned well. It's the best way to eat salmon. I'm telling you, you'll never go back. I feel like it's very Ashkenazi. Grow up with I don't know, you spread some honey, some whole grain mustard on it, throw it under the broiler. Once you start doing this, you're not going to look back.
It looks amazing. And yeah, it looks amazing. And we are so excited. I feel like my mouth is just watering through this, I can smell it through the screen practically. So just thank you so much. We recommend that you follow Jake on Instagram, that you look into his book. We are huge fans here and are just really excited to see how everything goes for you, and just we're excited for you.
Of course, truly my pleasure. So happy to be here tonight. I had a lot of
fun. And lastly, thank you all for joining us. We wish you a wonderful weekend and a peaceful Shabbat, and keep a lookout for our email and with the follow-up information. And if you haven't already, please fill out the survey so that we can better inform our future programming.